This is Bishop Dwayne Royster, Executive Director of Power, the state of Pennsylvania's largest multi-faith, multi-race-based organizing movement with over 100 congregations of multiple faith traditions operating in 10 counties across the state. With me is Amadi Braxton, activist, documentarian, philanthropist, counselor, coach, and consultant. Ms. Braxton, how are you this evening?
I'm great, now that I'm in air conditioning.
It was a little hot earlier today.
Yes, it was.
I got you. Each week we come to you on Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. to bring you the organizers, movement and thought leaders, elected officials, and community members who are creating solutions to the issues that impact your life on the local, state, national, and international levels. On the board tonight is engineer extraordinaire Troy Wilmore, who is capably producing and engineering the show.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Thank you, Troy, for frightening all of our listeners once again. Deeply appreciate it. Tonight we have two special guests joining us in conversation around the issues of gun violence. First, we have Kempis Songster, Director of the Healing Futures Program, a program of the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Projects. He'll be with us around 5:20. And then a little later in the show, we'll have Gary Pierre from the Haitian Times newspaper talking with us about the assassination of the president of Haiti and the impact of that on us, even here in the United States. But of course, each and every week, we welcome you as our primary guest. To join in the conversation, feel free to call 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065 or 1-866-361-0900. You can also listen to us live on the WURD app. You can listen to us live at wordradio.com. You can listen to us live on Alexa. Hey, Alexa, turn on WURD Radio. You can listen to us live on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube. On a variety of means, we are available to you. And if you're watching us via Facebook right now, would you do us a favor and hit the share button and let folk know that the Power Hour is on and that people can join us in this conversation on tonight. Ms. Braxton, what's on your mind?
The heat has been on my mind. But other than that, I really think that Biden's going to be successful with this infrastructure, dual track infrastructure bill passage. I think the timing of people getting their the child tax credit this week, beginning that process, which will be a monthly payment, which is huge. They've been trying to get that done for 30 years. Mm-hmm. That happening, I think, is a good signal and will make people feel good and want and will perhaps create in them this thought that, wow, we could actually get some more money flowing through our communities and through our households if we make sure that this stuff happens. So I feel tentatively optimistic about that. And then if that happens, I think then momentum can carry through with some of the other things. The Texas Democratic Caucus being in D.C. again, but for a longer extended period of time now, I think is a brilliant tactical move. And they're doing a lot of meetings and conversations with the Congress people at the federal level. So I don't know. I'm feeling, again, tentatively positive about politics at the national level.
That's good. I'm glad you're feeling that way. I'm feeling that way about, I think the infrastructure bill is going to pass. I think they're going to figure out the way to be able to do this with the 51 votes that they need. And I mean, they're probably not going to get the 3.5 trillion that they're asking for right now, but they'll get, somewhere, 2 point something trillion up to 3 trillion. I think they'll be able to work that out.
AOC says we need 10 trillion.
I totally agree with her. We need actually a Marshall Plan for our cities to rebuild our country and to make that level of investment to be able to transform our communities. I totally agree with her 100% on that. What I am frustrated by is the fact that the voting rights piece has not taken center stage. I was at the president's speech on this week. I was sitting 10 rows from where the president was speaking.
Oh, VIP. Okay.
I don't know about all that VIP
All
stuff.
right. Bishop Royster,
I was on the
Executive
floor.
Director of Power, a statewide interfaith movement.
But yeah, I was in the last row. So let me just say that right
Okay.
now. It was fine, and we were just glad to be there. We brought some of our leaders, several of our leaders actually had a chance to talk to the president and offer some prophetic words to him, so I'm grateful for that. But I mean, here's the big thing, right? We can get the infrastructure plan, but we need to deliver on voting. We need to make sure that the draconian laws that are being passed in Georgia and Florida, and they're trying to pass in Texas, that the Texas Democrats have abandoned ship, and many of them are losing their posts and positions in the Texas Senate and the Texas House because have disappeared and left the state. That they are continuing to fight here for that. You saw yesterday the Congressional Black Caucus chairwoman, Congresswoman Beatty out of Ohio, was arrested, along with 8 others who were protesting in the Senate building because the Senate will not consider the voting rights legislation. Mitch McConnell basically said it's dead on the water. Senator Chuck Schumer, who's the Senate Majority Leader, doesn't seem to have the political will. And there's also potentially 8 Democratic senators who are against ending the filibuster so that we can actually get this legislation passed. There was a proposal just the other day to end the filibuster just for the voting bill and then to put the filibuster back in place. A lot of argument, disagreement, going back and forth on this. I think it's a bit of a tragedy because I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, if the Republicans get the Senate back by a slim majority, they're going to end the filibuster immediately and do whatever they want to do so they can shut down President Biden's agenda for his last 2 years. So I don't know why we just don't do the filibuster, get the legislation that we want passed, and actually pass legislation that the filibuster never exists again. That's a risk that we take because if the Democrats do happen to wind up being in the minority, then, they won't have any power. But we need to find a way to pass this legislation. And since the Republican leadership won't even consider it, which I think is poor statespersonship at best, I think we're in a real ride. So the president and the vice president and Senator Chuck Schumer need to pull out and start twisting some arms to get the Democrats together so we can pass this voting legislation, because the 2022 elections are going to be a disaster. Raphael Warnock will not win again in Georgia with the laws the way they're passed right now. Val Demings will not win in Florida with the way the laws that they've passed in Florida are right now. The folk that are going to be running against, there's a Senate seat up in Texas, they're going to have a hard time. So we need folk to, get together, pass voting rights legislation, nullify the laws that have been passed in states, although President Biden did say that he was going to have Attorney General Merrick Garland begin lawsuits against those states, but that can take years to run through the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct. I think, the Republicans who are at, both at the federal and state level, who are ushering in all of these voting restriction laws. We talk about this probably every week on this show. They represent a small radical faction which is trying to push forward minority rule in this current period.
Right.
We are actually in a third Reconstruction period in this nation's history. We, for a long while, it was white dominant hegemony. We've had this ongoing struggle since the founding of this nation to actually make Black people, indigenous people, other people of color count in this democracy, and to actually have the democracy live up to its aspirations. And you know, we achieved an acknowledgement in the modern civil rights movement that yes, this is actually an inclusive, multicultural democracy. Like that's what we are going for. That's what we are moving toward. That's what we want as a nation with the passage of the Civil Rights Act, voting rights, all of that in the late 60s. And there has been an effort, there is always an effort to try to bring us backwards. And this faction that we have now that is holding the country hostage to a certain extent through their control of state houses, they have to be vanquished. Their power has to be vanquished. So the ongoing struggle to build a multiracial democracy where that actually includes everybody continues. And this is just the latest round of that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I hear everybody talking about the third Reconstruction. Actually, I think we actually need a deep period of deconstruction first, and then we can get to a construction. Because the very fabric and foundations of American democracy is just totally corrupted at this point. Not that it is ever, I mean, the rhetoric and the ideas of American democracy were very high-minded and I think actually achievable goals. The very foundation upon which we built the country was on sifting sand. And as we are continuing to see white supremacy, white hegemony, white male domination, in and of itself is a slippery slope. It is a sifting sand. It's a cracked foundation. So sometimes when you have a cracked foundation, you've got to go dig the whole thing out and start over again. And I'm not sure we really can do a reconstruction on a broken foundation because we'll actually eventually have to get to a fourth reconstruction and a fifth reconstruction. Sometimes I think we just got to dig it out, start over again, and figure out a new way of being, much the same way South Africa has had to do in its own machinations. Maybe we need to do something similar.
Well, South Africa, I think, is going through the same problem. I mean, South Africa, they ended the apartheid system. However, they never dealt with economic inequality in South Africa.
Right,
and
which still existed terribly.
Right, and that is what you're seeing now in terms of the major problems happening there. So, the protests, I think, happening against Jacob Zuma's imprisonment
for 15 months
is really, part of it is about a backlash around economic injustice and economic inequality that is so pervasive, that it's almost like, the apartheid system didn't go away if you don't correct they need reparations there big time.
Yeah. I would totally concur. But I think here's the thing. Here's the difference between South Africa and the U.S. South Africa put their crooked president in the jail. We have not. The president that actually made the country in the sad state that it's in right now. And I mean, let's be honest, they've all got a hand to some extent. But the last one, who was really going buck wild, is still not in jail. Zuma's in jail for 15 months just for contempt of court. It's not even about he's been convicted yet. This is just for contempt of court. So I'm just saying we could actually learn something from South Africa.
You're talking about wanting to throw Trump in jail?
Yes.
Yes.
He deserves it. He should have been in jail while he was in office. So, but I mean, they got. What's that?
Agreed. I mean, I'm still counting on his pending myriad of criminal cases to do something.
They're not touching. They arrested his treasurer, but they didn't arrest him.
Well, there's a process. You start with the lower on the totem pole and you work your way up. That's the process. We'll see. We'll see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I'm tentatively hopeful, but I will say that I'm praying.
I hear you on that one. And the fact that you said you're praying even more so.
Well, look, we're up on our first break. So let us go to commercial break, and on the other side, you will be we'll be joined by Kempis Songster, who is a phenomenal activist who is doing some incredible work that we've been kind of foreshadowing for a while on this show through our conversations about restorative justice with Jody Dodd at the DA's office. The restorative justice initiatives are now beginning in this city, quietly as it's kept, and we're going to hear about one of them that's taking place with Kempis Songster. You're listening to Solutions. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. Watch for a disabled vehicle on the Schuylkill Expressway eastbound between 202 and Gulf Mills. Actually just cleared out of the way, so it's gone now, but still some slow going through the area there. Then heavier volume further eastbound, Blue Route to Belmont Avenue and City Avenue to the Vine Expressway. Westbound backs up University Avenue all the way to Montgomery Drive. Then again, City Avenue to Belmont Avenue. Northbound 95 backing up Naaman's Road to the Commodore Barry Bridge. Also the Vine Expressway to Bridge Street. And traveling into Jersey, we've got some delays up and over the Walt Whitman Bridge down 42 South to about Creek Road. Again, that's on 42 southbound. Slow going there. Report brought to you by America's Best Contacts and Eyeglasses. Don't overpay for glasses. Get 2 pairs and a free exam for just $69.95. The exam alone is worth $50. That's not just a better deal. It's America's Best. Book your exam online today. In certain states, eye exams provided by independent ophthalmologists. See stores for details. And for more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
At Bank of America, we're helping to meet the need for more affordable housing through community development banking.
I'm Jim Dever, President of Bank of America, Greater Philadelphia. My teammates and I are deepening our commitment to help meet the affordable housing need. Here in Greater Philadelphia, we're also collaborating with Habitat for Humanity Philadelphia to expand options for more people. What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Remember the last time your family visited the forest? It's a place of wonder and imagination for the whole family, where stories come to life. And it's closer than you think. Ready to plan your next visit? Make the forest part of your story today at a local park near you, or find one at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Join Nick Taliaferro Wednesday, July 21st at 5 p.m. for a very special simulcast conversation on WURD and WVON Radio in Chicago. Hosted by WURD's own Nick Taliaferro and WVON's Matt McGill and Kimberly E. Goen on the impact of violence in Philadelphia and Chicago. That's Wednesday, July 21st at 5 p.m. exclusively on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com. Simulcast on WVON. 2 of the only black-owned talk radio stations in the nation join forces for a powerful and timely conversation. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
I think my bio is on YASP website.
Welcome back to Solutions. Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Amadi Braxton along with Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Hello.
We are joined this evening by Kempis Songster, who is a longtime activist with Amistad Law Project, podcaster who has been working for justice and restoration and healing for many, many years in this community. And he is the new head of a very unique program here in Philadelphia called Healing Futures, which is hosted by the Youth Art Self-Empowerment Project. Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project. And welcome. We're really happy to have you.
Hey, hi everybody. How are you all doing this Friday?
Doing great.
Doing good.
So I'm so excited to talk to you about this program because we have been talking a couple of times on the show over the past year or so with Jody Dodd of the DA's office about the restorative justice program that she has been working on researching, developing. And the last we heard from her, she was talking about setting up partnerships with community organizations who would actually do the work out in the community with the support of the DA's office. And also this is a national movement as well.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the Healing Futures program, what it's trying to do, and where you are in the process of launching.
Right. So what Healing Futures is a restorative justice diversion program operating, like you said, out of the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project, or YASP. Now, you might be aware of restorative justice diversion programs being done. It's being done all around the country in Alameda County, Long Beach, San Francisco, and a few counties out in California, Nashville, Tennessee, Durham, North Carolina, Miami, right? And Philadelphia is probably like the latest one. And what it entails in Philadelphia is the district attorney office referring cases of young people who were apprehended. And those cases are referred to YASP, and we take them through a restorative justice diversion process, which is with the aims of having the young person come face to face with the person that they've harmed, right, at a restorative community conferencing. At this conferencing, the young person and the person harmed would face each other and have an opportunity for one young person be accountable for what they've done, apologize for what they've done. The person who was harmed gets a chance to express, how the harm affected them, how it impacted their family and their life. And then together as a community, we come up with a community agreement or a restorative plan for the young person, which is everything is consensual, but focused mainly on the person harmed. And it's really determined by the person harmed of how this young person would help to repair the harm that they caused them. They might decide, for instance, for the young person to work at their business if they have a business, or maybe help them around their property, or maybe just better their grades in school. Or maybe they might not have any ideas per se, and so you have supporters and community members around there that are at the conference and with resources that might offer ideas like, okay, we have this program over here that does vocational training. Maybe the young person can come here and learn a trade, or maybe they can get a STEM education, or something like that. Maybe they can work in our community garden or whatever, right? And what we would do is in Healing Futures, we would monitor the progress of the young person as they carry out the restorative plan for about 2 months. All right. Now, when that plan is finished, then we would notify the district attorney's office that the young person has completed the program, and then no charges are filed, no charge, and nothing is pursued. No record is entered. No criminal record is entered into the young person's background. And then there is a community celebration. We celebrate not the young person causing harm, but we celebrate hope. We celebrate what we as a community have the capacity to do. How the capacity that we have to resolve our own trespasses among each other or against each other, right? Without the courts being involved, without the system being involved, but with right? Again, and I won't, I know you probably have some more questions, and we don't have much time. So if you have any questions that's dying to come out, let me have it. But that is the gist of the program. The charging unit sends a case to the district attorney's office. They send the case to us. We determine if we accept the case. And when we accept the case or the young person agrees to enroll in the program, we send word back to the DA's office that the young person is enrolled. And then we go through the process of facilitating a conference and then a restorative plan for the young person.
Mm-hmm. I think what's so powerful about this is that it actually works to restore and heal. Because yes. I think so much of the gun violence, we've been talking each week on the show about the ongoing problem with violence and gun violence, and so much, my belief is so much of what is at the root of that is unhealed trauma from the past that people are acting out now through violence, and they have easy access to guns, and it can be deadly, but certainly harmful. And so part of there is a need for healing. There's a need for repair. There's a need for reconnection. And there's so many communities now. You know, I was saying last week on the show, I think I saw a statistic, there have been 3,200 shootings over the past year or so. And if you multiply that by 10 people in terms of like the number of people around the shooting victim that has been impacted, if you're talking about even a conservative number, their immediate family, the people on their block, you know, extended family and friends, like all of the people that are impacted by one act of violence, everybody is carrying that with them, let alone the victim themselves. So the exciting thing for me is about this kind of restorative justice, particularly focused on youth, is the reconnection with community, the healing that is possible, the restoration of some sense of repair.
Amadi, you said, I mean, you just laid out like just a treasure trove of some important points, you know, and principles in what you just said. You spoke about the unhealed trauma and the need for healing, and especially getting at the root causes of things, because I do want to lift up that what we see in the behavior of our young people, and there are many behaviors today that's so problematic, is not their behaviors are not the problem. Their behaviors are their responses to the problem. And let me also say that although I use the term restorative justice, and I have the title of Program Manager of Restorative Justice Diversion, I'm not married to the term restorative justice. I understand its limitations, and we use it for lack of a more commonly used term. I know that restorative justice, I know the limitations of it for what we're dealing with in these inner cities, socially toxic environments that our problematic behaviors in our young people are born in. And when we say restore, I want to caution us that we're not talking about restoring anything back to that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, what are we restoring things to? And which is why I'm like, I'm more open to the term transformative justice, which it embraces and encompasses restorative justice principles, but it's also about transforming the conditions that give rise to violent tendencies in our youth. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
I want to lift that up because I want to caution us not to use restorative justice or use these diversion programs as like a new tool for fixing our kids. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that our kids need fixing. I think what needs fixing is the conditions that our children are being born into and growing up in. I don't want us to lose sight of these bigger issues that have to be addressed, right? But it was, with respect to the healing piece and getting to the root causes of the unhealed and accumulated traumas that you mentioned, it's this analogy that's used by Dr. Carl Bell, who's a trauma therapist and a physician, when he says, if a child comes to your clinic for a rat bite and you give that child, you clean the wound and you give the child a tetanus shot and you send the child on its way, that might make you a good doctor. If 3 children come to your clinic for a rat bite and you do all of those things, right, it might make you an okay doctor. But if 100 children come to your clinic for a rat bite and you do all those things, clean the wound, give the children tetanus shots and send them on their way, but then you don't go out into the community to find and eliminate the rat, then you should have your license revoked, right? Because something out there is biting our children, right? There are some root causes, and we need to get to it, right? And so that's what this also is about, too. It's also about addressing the root causes of our children's behavior. So it's not just about, we do want our children to be more accountable. We want them to value their role in the community, right? And I would probably just close up the point with this. We often hear the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And the truth of that is not worn out by how many times we use it. The truth is still as solid as ever. But there is another African proverb that we don't cite enough, and that is, when a child is not embraced by the village, he or she will burn it down to feel its warmth, right? And what we want to do with this program is we want to use it as a thread to weave together our community, right? Weave it together and circle our wagons, not around our young people and around people who are harmed, right? Circle our wagons around each other, right? And create an environment in the restorative community conferencing and then in the community that we help to heal from these conferences. We want to create a space where our young people could feel embraced by the community and not judged, not rejected, not condemned, right, for their behaviors, right? But we want to send a message to them that even though you have done wrong and even though your behavior is out of pocket, right, we still love you, right? We love you. We have hope in you. We understand that there are hands that's rocking your cradle, right? That's hard for you to see. And we will help you get a handle on it. But in the meantime, you have to understand the impact of your behavior and your actions on other human beings, right? That is what, that's what this is all about, Sister Amadi. And so I think it's crucial for a city like Philadelphia, which is ground zero of mass human caging in the state and one of the epicenters of, tough on crime politics in the country. You know what I'm saying? Every of the entire state of Pennsylvania's prison population, 40% comes from Philadelphia, right? And not one state prison exists in Philadelphia, yet and still Philadelphia makes up 40% of all the state prisons around the country. And the next city the city that provides the second highest statistic is Pittsburgh at 2%. So that just lets you know how much the state relies on Philadelphia to fill its industrial complex. Philadelphia is the city that the state draws its bodies from for mass human caging, predominantly black and brown bodies, let's be clear. And so, and definitely it does the same with our children. So
let me jump in here for a second, if I could, because you talked about transformative justice. And I think, one of the things that I think it's also important for us to also wrestle with, and what I appreciate this program, because it talks about the fact that they're community members, not just the folk harmed, but the other folk in the community that are there, because I think we have to talk about community transformation too. Children are a product of the environments that they come from.
Yes.
And so it's not just that child, that seems to me, that's getting transformed. When we have community members that are getting engaged, it's also them learning about their neighbors and learning about their, young folk and their experiences and what's happening in that. And I think it actually could have a tendency to, if we, it's probably young folk and parents and guardians and others that are in that space. I think it's also about transforming the extended community. Going back to, it's not an African proverb, but somebody I heard, late Bishop Cornelius Henderson said this one time when people were saying that, people are talking about the children are going to the dogs. And Bishop Henderson said it's because there's an old dog leading them down that path. And so we need to recognize that there are ways that I feel like this program can actually be both transformative for the young person, but actually transformative to the community simultaneously, because the community has responsibility for the success and or failure of this child.
Bishop, you are so spot on. And I just want us to be under no illusions, right, that the success and the effectiveness and success of this program is not going to be determined solely by the district attorney's office and YASP, the partnership between those two. The success of this program is only going to be determined by the community altogether.
Sure.
You understand? Let's be clear about that. So the Restorative Justice Diversion Program, Healing Futures, right, that we're doing in Philadelphia is a prefigurative intervention that's geared not only towards getting the system out of the way of, but getting our community more involved in what really needs to happen after young people cause harm. And fortunately, people like yourself and Amadi and a lot of people that's listening already realize that what needs to happen after harm is done is, one, learning and understanding what the needs of the person harmed are, what the responsible youth needs to help repair that harm, what the community needs to be healthy and whole, right, in the wake of the harm, and then everyone working together to see that those needs are met, right? The transformative piece is many, not just the healing, but the empowering piece, because one of the things about the current adversarial system that we have, when a harm is done, a system steps in to arbitrate for you and solve all the problems. You go to a courtroom if you're a person harmed or you're the family of the individual that caused the harm, and you just sit there and you watch everything play out, right? And everybody speaks for you. The lawyer speaks for one side, the district attorney speaks for the other side, and then a judge judges. In this process, the community has agency.
Absolutely.
The conferencing is either held in a community-based or organization space, a library, a rec center, or a church, wherever. And the person harmed determines where this location is going to be, right? We have food there and everything. You know, food is a part of our culture. You know what I'm saying? We have food there, and we come a circle, and we form a circle. And the person harmed, as well as the responsible youth, they're not the only ones there facing each other. Each of them get to bring their supporters. They get to bring their sisters, everybody that's impacted by this, everybody that loved them, and the community gets to be there, and everybody has an opportunity to say how they were impacted by this event or this incident, and also what hopes they have for in this young person, right? Mm-hmm. So that agency, that empowerment is a transformative piece for our community, Brother Bishop, because right now, our community has lost its confidence in how to resolve our problems. We've lost our confidence, which is why we get on the phone and we call the state, you know what I'm saying, to resolve things. You know, we're scared to come out on our porches. Parents have lost confidence on how to parent their children. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we're facing a crisis of confidence right now as a community, and this program is about giving us that confidence, but especially amongst people harmed. Just one more piece. By facing, go ahead, sister.
Can I pause you? We're past our break.
Okay.
Can we keep you a little bit on the other side of the break so that you can finish that thought, and I can just ask you a little bit about the logistics of the program? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, I'm running. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay.
I'm so hyped about this stuff.
No, that's okay. It's fabulous. It's really wonderful. So we'll continue the conversation on the other side of the break. We're here with Kempis Songster, who is leading this new program, and called Healing Futures. You're listening to Solutions. We'll be right back.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good afternoon. Watch for an accident on 42 southbound between 168th, the Black Horse Pike, and Blackwood Clementon Road. It's blocking the right lane. Traffic stacked up approaching the area. Elsewhere, Schuylkill eastbound backs up between the Blue Route and Belmont Avenue, also the Boulevard to the Vine. And we back up as well because of the construction past Young to Broad Street. Left lane blocked in that stretch. Delays back to University Avenue. 76 westbound jams up University Avenue all the way to Montgomery Drive, then City Avenue to Belmont Avenue. 95 northbound backs up Columbus Boulevard to Penn's Landing. Southbound, we jam up Betsy Ross Bridge to Girard and around the Commodore Barry Bridge, where the center lane's blocked for construction. Report brought to you by America's Best Contacts and Eyeglasses. Don't overpay for glasses. Get 2 pairs and a free exam for just $69.95. The exam alone is worth $50. That's not just a better deal. It's America's Best. Book your exam online today. In certain states, eye exams provided by independent ophthalmologists. See stores for details. And for more traffic info, log on to sigalert.com. I'm Jason Lee with your Philadelphia area traffic.
If you or a loved one is searching for a home care agency that provides care both needed and deserved, call My Independence at Home at 215-921-2277. Featured in Oprah Magazine, My Independence at Home is committed to quality, compassionate home care for the elderly and adults with both physical and intellectual developmental disabilities. Call 215-921-2277 today for a free in-home consultation, or visit us on the web at myIAH.org.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the Word Radio newsletter. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on Word. This is Dwayne Royster along with Amadi Braxton.
Hello.
Hey, Word family. This weekend is the 20th anniversary of Tasty Treats. Tasty Treats is a legendary party and cultural event founded by Stacy Fly Girl Wilson, Yamin Allworld, and Amir Questlove Thompson of The Roots. The event takes place on Saturday, July 17th, outside the Fillmore, 29 East Allen Street, from 7 p.m. to midnight. Enjoy music from Word's own DJ Mike Nice and Amir Questlove Thompson of the legendary Roots crew. For tickets and information, visit www.flygirl.com. That's girl with 2 R's. That's www.flygirl.com. Looks like that's going to be a great party to go to. That sounds like one of those celebrations that has to happen when one of our young folk here through this the program, of the Healing Futures program, completes their time.
That's right.
All right. Turn it back to Amani.
Yes, so we're back here with Kempis Songster. Just to wrap up, we had to cut you off in the middle of I'm sure, a powerful thought. But I wanted to ask you, before we let you go, what is happening so far with the program? So it launched this year, and you've already begun to get referrals of cases from the DA's office, and you're starting to engage in these processes. Tell us just where you are at with the launch of the program and what's happening so far.
Yeah, so we officially launched the program back in May. We spent about just about a year preparing, setting things up. But we officially launched in May and received our first cases about 4 weeks ago, right? We received 3 cases involving 4 youth. And, we've already reached out to the young people. We've had 4 successful enrollments, and we've reached out to the persons harmed. And every last one of the persons harmed are interested in participating in the program. I think that's also something to lift up too, that, in other sites around the country, they've done reports, after you do 25 cases, then we can do the analytics on the program, do this, gather all the data and do an evaluation. And there's a common statistic of a 91% satisfaction rate amongst the people who were harmed. I think that is an insane statistic in a world where it's hard to get people to agree on anything 50% of the time, right? 91% among the people who were harmed, 91% satisfaction rate for this program. And there's some other things to lift up. This program has been effective at reducing the recidivism rate at its various sites. There is like, for instance, over a course of 12 months, only an 18.4% recidivism rate for the youth that went through restorative community conferencing, as opposed to 32.1% of young people adjudicated through the criminal legal system. And it's very cost effective as well, because the average one-time cost of moving a young person through this program is maybe $4,500, as opposed to $23,000 per year on average for youth on probation per se. You know what I'm saying? Or $588 a day, or $214,620 a year to confine a young person, right? Compare that with $4,500 an entire, for an entire young person. And so this is, it's cost effective. It has a low recidivism rate. You know what I mean? Everything about the program is very forward looking, you know, and forward moving for our community. It's about trying something different because what we have been doing so far has not been working in our own best interest. I won't say that the system is broken. I think the system is working exactly how it was designed to work. You know, it cages, it cuffs and cages and corrals who it was meant to or designed to, is what I believe. Right, but it has not been healthy for our community, right? A program like this is more rooted in our own way, our own ancestral ways of doing things. You know, they call it restorative justice, but that's just a name for ways of handling human trespasses against each other that we've been doing for millennia. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's Ubuntu in South Africa that gave rise to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or the Gacaca courts, which means Gacaca literally means justice in the grass, that they implemented to in the wake of the Rwanda genocide. You know what I'm saying? You know, there is no precedent in this country's systems right now for us to resolve our trespasses in a healing way. And so we have to go back into our old ancestral ways and draw out these practices and principles, right? And unfortunately, we have something like that about to gain anchorage in the city of Philadelphia. It represents a tectonic shift, you know, from in the city. This is Frank Rizzo's city. This is Ron Casteel's and Lynn Abraham's and their city. So for something like that to be taking place in this city, it's a major, major shift and full of promise for our community.
Absolutely. That's why we wanted to have you on. I've been waiting for this moment for this to actually take root and get and launch. So I'm so happy to have had you on. I know you have business to get to, so I'll let you go, but we'd love to have you back at any point in the future if you want to update us on how it's going, what's happening, what you're seeing. Bring any of the youth that have been involved or any of the people that have been involved. We'd love to hear firsthand, because I think people really people have been so we're so downtrodden about the situation right now, and people just need to really get a taste of what's possible and get that sense of hope that healing can happen and healing is possible. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for all of your work. And people should, you know, we'll keep you posted, but also people should check out, what's the name of your podcast? Move It Forward?
Move It Forward.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. It's the Amistad Law Project podcast. Well, I'm not host. I hosted the first 7 episodes.
Okay.
But since I'm with YASP now,
Okay.
I'm not hosting it anymore. But the show will continue with a different host.
Okay. Well, and I checked out, I think the first one, and they're very, very powerful, very interesting podcast. So I just encourage everybody to check out Move It Forward as well. Thank you so much, Kempis Songster. Continue with the great work, and we're very happy that you could have you were able to join us today.
Thank you both. Peace to everybody. Brother Bishop, be at ease, and Sister Amadi, we'll talk soon. Be blessed.
Okay.
All right.
Be blessed.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
So, Bishop, exciting.
That's great. I'm actually really pumped about that. I mean, that's a great program. I hope that we're actually able to scale that up. I mean, this is a tremendous way to really get children out of the school to prison pipeline, find better ways for them to, to be restored in community. But I go back and I'll just, repeat what I said earlier. It's not just the children have to be restored. The community's got to be restored. And there's a lot of work that has to happen in our communities in terms of transformation to be able to be an incubator for children to be successful, and not for them to feel like that, their pathway towards their future has to do with crime or, illicit activities and so forth. So I'm hoping that, that it takes root, it digs deep, it gets people engaged in getting to know neighbor again, which a lot of people don't really know their neighbors anymore, and that people are beginning to see each other as other human beings, not as somebody to fear.
Totally. I think, what I was struck by when Kempis was talking about, the traditional way of cases going to the courts, and you have the people just passively watching everything unfold in the courtroom versus actually giving people allowing people to use their own voice to resolve disputes or to hold each other in care and accountability. for things that have happened. You know, the way that the criminal justice system has operated is to pit victims and perpetrators against each other. Oftentimes, victims and perpetrators know each other or have some kind of relationship, whether it's just like a familial relationship or a friendship network or neighborhood, geographic location. They are in some type of community with each other a lot of times, not all the time, but many times. And they can actually, by actually engaging with each other, they could actually learn and heal from what happened. So I'm just so excited and happy that this is happening. And I'll just shout out to Jody Dodd, who has helped to lay the groundwork at the DA's office for this, for, you know, doing a lot of research and working with activists in the community to help shape it, because I know that's her style of working. Very, very grassroots oriented, not top down oriented. So I'm just super excited about this.
This is actually democratic justice.
So if you'd like to join the conversation and let us know what you think about this Healing Futures program, you should call 215-634-8065. In a few minutes, we're going to be going to our next break, but then after that, we'll be talking about Haiti. And of course, you can call after the segment on Haiti also to talk about this. But we invite you to share your views, your takes on this program. I think, you know, what Kemp has said at the end there about, you know, this is the Rizzo, Castile, Abraham city. I mean, and he talked about at the beginning, 40% of the state prison population is coming from Philadelphia. You know, that is decades upon decades of mass incarceration at work.
Right.
And so that has to be undone. That has to be undone now. And when he talked about the cost of this program, about $4,500 per child that goes through this program, this process, as compared to what it costs to incarcerate. I mean, this is why the call for defunding the police, even though I don't know if defunding exactly is, you know, is all of what we're talking about, but we're talking about mass transfer of resources out of policing, traditional, quote unquote, traditional policing, into these kinds of programs and practices to kind of get us back in touch with community-centered healing, community-centered processes that can actually make a big difference, and where those who have harmed and those who have been harmed can actually be both embraced by the community, and that there can be some real accountability for a young person. You know, I was talking to somebody I know who committed a crime when they were young that really seriously injured someone, where that person now has a permanent disability.
Oh, wow.
And they have this person has come a long way in terms of transforming their life. The person who was the perpetrator of this crime, transforming their life, learning from the experience. They did time. They are now on a totally different path than they were. You know, they made a stupid mistake on a bad day, right, leading to this. And we were talking about where they've come, but there's still this kind of unfinished business of. And I asked them, you know, have you ever talked to the person you harmed and asked them to forgive you?
Wow.
And they had not done that. And they actually had never considered that that was a possibility. They could do that. But they expressed that they would be open to that possibility if the other person was open to it. So I just think that there is, you know, unless you ask somebody for forgiveness for something that you've done, it's still kind of an open wound even for the person who did it.
Right.
Let alone for the person who's living with the consequences. So I just think that, you know, this restorative or transformative process can be amazing, and I can't wait to see the fruit that it bears going forward. Anyway, I could go on and on about this, obviously.
Well, no, I mean, this is great.
So we're up
Can
on
you hear me?
our next break. And on the other side of the break, we'll be hearing from Gary Pierre, who is from Haitian Times, to talk about the assassination of the president in Haiti, and how the situation has evolved and is evolving. And really looking forward to that because I've been following that situation there closely. You're listening to Solutions. We'll be right back.
The hottest place to hang out this summer is the Dell Music Center. The lineup is lit. Thursday, August 5th, 10. SWV. And Drew Hill. Then on August 12th, Gregory Porter, Stokely, and Leela James. Then on Thursday, August 19th, Fresh Off versus the Isley Brothers. Performing all their greatest hits with Kelly Price and Carol Riddick. Get your tickets at the Dell box office and Ticketmaster.com. This is going to be an incredible season with Tank, SWV, Drew Hill, Gregory Porter, Stokely, Leela James, Carol Riddick, Kelly Price, and the Isley Brothers. For more information, log on to thedellmusiccenter.com.
Students, parents, teachers, guardians, 100 Black Men of Philadelphia is offering free mentoring programs this summer to help provide an alternative to the gun violence plaguing our city. Our programs build character, body, and mind of our boys 1st to 12th grades through paid high school internships, book clubs, fishing, physical fitness, and more. Register today at www.100blackmenphilly.org and click events or call 267-258-2900.
WURD Radio Digital Tip of the Month with Stephanie Humphrey. Brought to you by Comcast.
Email phishing scams are nothing new, but they get more convincing and sophisticated every day. In the past, you'd get fake emails that seemed to come from your bank or credit card company, but now you could also see messages that appear to come from Amazon, PayPal, or Netflix as well. So how can you spot a scam? Look for misspellings or grammar errors in the email message. Most phishing scams try to scare you with a sense of urgency in the message that tries to get you to click on a link or provide account information. And one of the biggest telltale signs of a phishing scam is the email address of the sender. Pay close attention to where the email came from. A scam email address is usually totally unrelated to the company it's claiming to represent. Remember, a legitimate company will never send an email asking you for sensitive personal information, so if you're unsure, call the company directly and never click any links or open any attachments in the message. Stay safe online, stay tuned to WURD for more tips, and stay connected with us at wordradio.com.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions. This is Amadi Braxton along with Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Hello.
And we are very pleased to have join us this evening, our second guest tonight, Gary Pierre, a Pulitzer Prize-winning multimedia and entrepreneurial journalist who in 1999 left the New York Times to launch the Haitian Times, a New York-based English-language publication serving the Haitian diaspora. He's also the co-founder of the City University Graduate School of Journalism's Center for Community and Ethnic Media and a senior producer at CUNY TV. Mr. Pierre, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Amadi.
So, ever since this assassination of President Jovenel Moïse happened, I've been wanting to have somebody on the show to talk about it. And since then, it has been a quickly evolving situation with many twists and turns as we uncover more and more about what led to that. And I'm wondering if you could just give our audience an update on what you now know, what we now understand about what led to the assassination, and what is the latest that has come out about the plot to assassinate the president.
Well, the latest today, the news of the day is that the body is up in the northern part of the country, Cape Haitian, the second largest, and they've set up the funeral date. I believe it's July 25th. Do not quote me on that. because I don't have it in front of me, but it's been said soon. I mean, one of the things I have to say, Amadi, is that the investigation so far, each development has raised a whole set of questions about how this went down. It doesn't make absolutely any sense that a sitting president is assassinated inside his bedroom while his security details didn't get a scratch, let alone a bullet. And the president is riddled with bullets and he was tortured. His eyes were gouged and his arms were broken. So this was something visceral. It was not a professional hit. It doesn't, professionals don't act that. We don't have time for all of that. And so that started right there. Then every other explanation, for instance, the role of the Colombians in the country, that's dubious. We're not clear. And also, the efficient with which the police are operating is amazing because they're not that efficient. They're arresting people left and right. I mean, the country's most prominent journalist was assassinated 20 years ago. Today, his assailants are still unknown. And I can go down over the years, high-profile people who have been murdered, assassinated, and the police have done nothing. Also, think about this. As your audience may know, Haiti has been undergoing a gang crisis for the last 2 years. In fact, the police tried to enter into a gang territory. They were killed, and their tanks were seized and all of that. So all of a sudden, juxtapose that scenario with the efficiency of the police right now, it doesn't add up. The only thing that I can tell you for sure is how the president was assassinated, was killed. But all these others, there may be some kernel of truth to them, but there is more questions in the answer.
What do you know about, I think just this week we're hearing reports about the person who they are saying is behind the plot, who is a Haitian American, I think, doctor in Florida, who their reports have said that he wanted to replace the president and was behind this plot. What do you make of that story?
It's sensical. It's theater. I mean,
it's theater.
This man,
okay.
Yeah, it is. I don't know him personally, but I have a lot of people who know him personally. He's one of those grifters, big talker, who always got an idea, always know everybody. Well, doesn't deliver. He has filed for bankruptcy. He's broke. I don't know how he would get the money to carry out something like that, and doesn't have the kind of access to penetrate at that level. To get inside the president's bedroom. It's not as if the president was in a convoy and then there was an accident and then he died. This is a hit inside his bedroom. I can't emphasize that enough because in the middle of the night. And so, I guess as journalists, we have to report what people are saying, but we have to report what we don't know as well and say, listen, this is what they're saying, but this, that, and the other, these questions are raised, and then we outline them. Because otherwise, we're giving credibility to things that are suspect.
So can you say a little bit more about the context, the crisis of gangs that has been going on in Haiti, and what role does that play? Like, how does that relate to the political context for the President Moise to I guess part of the thing that I first read was that he was trying to extend his term. People were saying he was trying to extend his term beyond what he was supposed to be in office for, and he was saying, no, this is the proper time when I'm supposed to stay in office until next year. Tell us just a little bit more about like the political context and the rise of the gang crisis and what that has led to in terms of a political crisis in Haiti.
Okay, this is a little bit complicated, and I'm going to try my best to make it as simple as possible so your listeners can grasp what's happening there. And the political situation. In 2017, there were elections, they were botched. So they were postponed a year later. So Moise was elected and sworn in. So because he's legally there for 5 years, he is saying that he lost a year to no fault of his own, and that he shouldn't leave in 4 years. He should extend it to 5 proper years from the time that he was sworn into office to the time that, his mandate expires. And so the opposition said, no way, because, you're trying to violate the Constitution. He said, wait. But here's the problem. The reason that there's no parliament right now, there's another element of it. There's no parliament. He dissolved parliament. He let the mandate run out because every time he tried to get them a quorum to set an election date, the parliamentarians would boycott. They would be AWOL. They didn't have enough people to form a quorum to take care of that business. And so he stopped trying that, and he went on to stay in power and basically running by fiat, by executive order. This is a problem that Washington had issues with, that when Biden administration was inaugurated, and they said, this is not okay. This is not really a good way to run the country. Mm-hmm. And so this crisis was ongoing on top of the gang crisis. The gang crisis started shortly after he took office, in July 7th, 2018, on the same day he was assassinated, by the way, July 7th. And so
it was like an anniversary.
Yeah, of the beginning of the major lockdown. The capital city is essentially isolated from the rest of the country. The gangs control, various gangs control various arteries out of the country, out of the city. I'm sorry, it's been a long week. And so there's very little commerce. Goods are not coming in as they should. Basically, the country has been in lockdown ever since then.
So let me ask you, Mr. Pierre, the question I have is really related to the Haitian government with the interim prime minister has reached out to the U.S. asking for support, asking for military help. President Joseph Biden has said no. He's sending more Marines to protect the embassy, but not doing anything to help Haiti. What is that saying to the Haitian community, the Haitian government right now? In terms of, I'd heard earlier reports that originally when President wanted to basically extend his term, the original government response was, yeah, that's fine. And, now there seems like there's some tension here.
Well, first of all, that prime minister sort of like made an opportunistic move because he had been fired by Moise a couple of days before his death, and he had appointed another prime minister, Ariel Henry. So now he, the one you're referring to is Claude Joseph. He made a deal with the UN representative to Haiti to call him the prime minister and say they were willing to work with him. Now, his call for Biden to send troops, his personal call. There's nobody in Haiti who supports that. He just wants protection for himself, and so he's asking the American soldiers to come in and be his bodyguard, essentially. That's what he's trying to do. And nobody's going to play that game. Haiti does not need Marines. Haiti has some deep-seated issues, internal issues, that it needs to resolve, and the Marines or anybody else's troop will not be needed to take care of that. It has to sit down and talk about, okay, how did we get to this point? And what do we need to do to fix it once and for all? Because basically, it's the same issue that comes up every 10 or 5 years. It's the same thing. Hopefully another 5 years or 10 years, I won't be on the airwaves trying to explain this. We would have taken care of this because it's the same dynamics that are at play, and nothing's going to change until Haitians decide that they want to make Haiti a better place for them to live. And now, the other side is, yes, do they need help? Absolutely. Then they could tell the international community, they can tell the Haitian American community how they can help. Because we've tried too much to interfere in the issues of the country because we're afraid that if things get to a point, it's going to be chaos. Well, perhaps, you have to go through some stuff before you get to the place where you want to be.
So in terms of what as I've been watching some of the reporting, and I realize I just need to read your paper, nothing else. But part of what is confusing is that we're hearing these threads of the story that seem conspiratorial. Like they're saying that there was this plot, or there was, and clearly there was some kind of plotting going on, right, to plan this assassination, perhaps. But there's all of these characters, and I think a lot of the ways that I would say the mainstream, maybe North American journalism is covering things is that there's different characters in the story, and there's all of these kind of various characters, shady characters, etc. I'm always looking for the story of, like, what are the conditions for the mass of the Haitian people? What are they interested in? What do they need? What do they want politically to happen? What do they want as a resolution? So that's always the thing that I'm looking for, and I don't really often find it in the reporting so far about this particular story. I know it's some of the stories read like, it's a crime to be solved, right? It's like a mystery to be solved. But I'm wondering, in terms of the needs of the Haitian people, we know COVID is still a big problem there right now as well. What do they need, and what should we in the U.S. be supporting, if any kind of support is to come from the United States? What is it that the Haitian people want and need?
The people of Haiti want what any people across the world want: the ability to have a life that's uninterrupted every month or so, the ability to go out to church without being kidnapped, to send their kids to school, not being in fear of them being kidnapped or being invaded by gangs. And everything that I've said here are things that have happened. It's not. I'm not being. It's real. And so the conditions that have led to this are obvious to many Haiti watchers. Haiti is basically an apartheid state, run by certain families. Most of them are not Haitian. Most of them are European ancestry. Some from the Middle East. And then they lord over the country, and this chaos works for them because they make more money. And they don't really care about, the questions that you're asking, because the idea is, their feeling is like, these people are animals. They're savages, so who cares about them? There's a saying, excuse my French, the masses are asses. That's the way they see the masses, a bunch of asses that, they're there to buy their goods, whatever it is that they're selling, because then this is a system. Then the diaspora sends the money back to their relatives so they could buy stuff from these oligarchs. And the system continues, because we cannot here in the United States say we're not sending money to our relatives because we know they're in dire need. So we are caught in this vicious cycle, and I call it a cycle of corruption, because we're part of it, because, they won't let the place democratize. Okay, democracy in Haiti is a farce. Okay, it's controlled by these families. If they don't like the results, they make sure they get who they want. And even though Moise made a Faustian bargain with these guys, he did. He's not, a saint, far from it. But I think at some point he got a revelation that perhaps, you know what, I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to break this. And he paid the ultimate price. Again, I am not saying that he was a saint, far from it. But I think he wanted to, a better life for the average Haitian. This is the story that you want to read or hear, you're not going to see. Because the media system is not set up for those kind of stories, because that's secondary. That's the story why the Haitian Times was founded to tell that story, and who's trying to tell it.
Well, we will continue to follow, and I definitely will be making you my main source, the Haitian Times, my main source, as I try to make sense of what's happening and follow. I mean, Haiti is important to me only because I learned about Haiti and the history of U.S. involvement in Haiti through a documentary project I was working on many years ago with filmmaker Louis Messiah here in Philadelphia, and there is a historical connection between African Americans and Haitians that we don't often hear about, and Haiti had a successful revolution against colonialism, the first in this hemisphere. So I always hold Haiti close to my heart for those reasons. Thank you, Gary Pierre from the Haitian Times. We really appreciate you coming on. I know you're extremely busy right now with everything that's happening, so we really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. You are listening to Solutions on WURD. We'll be right back after this break.
Between family dinners, bedtime stories, and study sessions, Pico knows that life never stops moving. So if your energy bills are adding up, Pico has programs available, like new payment options, flexible billing, and financial assistance to help you manage your bills and your budget for the essential energy you and your family need. Learn how Pico can help keep your life moving with payment arrangements. See if you qualify at pico.com/help.
Hi, WURD family. My name is Kim Hall Jackson, and I am a colorectal cancer survivor. If I can convince one person to get a screening, then I know my voice is making a difference. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner and get your Fit Kid test today.
WURD Radio has partnered with the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, Independence Blue Cross Foundation, Penn Medicine, and LabCorp to provide a free at-home screening test for colon cancer. All WURD listeners can register for a free at-home screening test as a part of the Go to Know campaign. This campaign is designed to provide African Americans with free testing for early colon cancer screening. Colon cancer can be prevented, and early detection saves lives. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to request your free test today.
You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster along with Amadi Braxton.
Hello.
The phone lines are open, and this has been a great conversation, two great conversations today. Learned a lot, and I really appreciate both the guests that we've had on. I know we're going to dig into that in a minute. 215-634-8065, 215-634-8065. If you're out of the area and you're still using 800 numbers, because most cell phones, you just call in, 1-866-361-0900. We look forward to being in conversation with you. Wow, that was great, Ms. Braxton. Thank you for both of those guests tonight. One about restoring, the other one about, we talked about reconstruction. I mean, Haiti is actually going to have to be in a state of reconstruction yet again.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we have Rick in Germany, Troy. Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
And good day to Mr. Royster.
Hello.
What's on your mind?
I have a question for each of you. Mr. Royster, you started out the program talking about someone, I think, from Africa who deserved to be in jail. Could you state that person's name and why you feel that person needs to be in jail? And to the sister, I would ask you to speak on the situation with the land there in Haiti. What good is the land for growing food? I understand that there's gold in Haiti and there are other mineral resources that the world wants. But what good is the land for the people in growing food?
Yeah, great. So let me just say real quick, we were talking about former president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, who has been put in jail because for 15 months for contempt of court. He has been brought up on charges of I'm missing the word right now. I'm sorry. Long day. What did you say?
He had been brought up on charges of corruption,
Corruption and fraud.
And had refused to testify in court.
Absolutely. So that's why he has been brought up. He refused to testify in court, refused to show up for his depositions, and so the court threw him in jail for 15 months for his failure to participate in an investigation run by the government of South Africa. And so he's in jail. That's why he is in jail.
But I think that Rick was asking, why do you think he deserves to be there?
Well, one, because he is thwarting the process of the government to do an investigation, and he's choosing not to participate, much the same way that our president has refused to participate and thwarted every effort for the United States government and any other government entity to be able to do investigations. He's blocked, he's obstructed, he's refused participation, and so because he has done that, he gets thrown in jail for obstructing justice, and I think Donald Trump deserves the same thing.
I'm not an expert on South African politics, but I think you captured it. In terms of Haiti and the soil, I'm not an expert now. I did a bunch of research a number of years ago, and I know that back then there was a problem with the soil being denuded, meaning a lot of the soil was struggling with erosion, and because of the removal of trees and the roots of the trees leading to the soil being easily eroded. And so there was a problem with not having arable soil that they were dealing with then. I don't know what the current situation is now. Rick, if you have any insight on either of these two questions that you want to share, please feel free.
Yeah, he's no longer on the line. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I wish that we could have been in dialogue.
Yep.
Let's go to Cliff in Connecticut.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I'll get right to the point. Just want to ask you, what happened in Haiti, could it be very well possible that it can happen here in the United States, in your opinion, both? Bishop and then Sister Braxton, could that same thing happen here in America?
I think it would be tough to. Here's my opinion of this. I don't know this for a fact, but to be able to get into the president's house, there had to be some partnership with the security to get them into the president's house in the middle of the night to execute what they did. They claimed that they were from the DEA. That's what the story's telling us. I just think there's a lot more into this, and I believe it's an inside job. I believe it's an internal government job. I think it would be much more difficult to do here in the United States.
But I think in terms of the conditions of oligarchy that our guest was discussing, when you have a country that essentially the economic system is run by elites, oligarchs who have oversized influence in what happens in the government, which do have that dynamic here.
Absolutely.
We do have a constitution that structures in participatory democracy to a certain extent, and we of course are a much larger country. But when you have a situation where you have such corruption and oligarchy, it's very difficult. I was just talking with somebody who lives in Guatemala right now. It's the same exact thing. They described a handful of very wealthy families who basically got their wealth through their participation in the colonial system. The previous colonizers they did business with. They gained a lot of wealth through that process, and then in a post-colonial period, they maintain their economic power and have outsized influence and can buy influence in the government. So we have that here to a certain extent. We have that all over the world. I think that's the big that's the big challenge to democracy, is the influence of moneyed interests and the oligarchs. So that's what I would say, Cliff.
Response, and I'll be brief. Bishop and Sister Braxton, in my opinion, it already happened. What we saw on the Capitol, that took place. If they had Pence or anybody else that were in the possession of these gangs, you know, the Oath Keepers, you know, the Boogaloo Boys, you know, these were gangs, you know, and then if they had access, you know, to these politicians, the same thing would have happened. You know, they were going to just comb their hair if they took custody of these people. You know, they would have afflicted some type of violence. And so the point I'm making is that, you know, when you have anywhere in society, you're going to have the haves and then the have-nots. And then from a spiritual standpoint, Bishop, what I'm saying is that when you have a system that's not treating grassroots people and the poor fairly, at some point you're going to have some uprising, you know, because of corruption. In America, could very well, we just saw that, and it could happen again even more. So in closing, if Trump were to be reelected or to run again and he does not get in, I guarantee you're going to see more violence coming from these gangs, these white gangs, as you see that happen in Haiti and that you see happening in Cuba. In the Bible, you're going to see this unrest, this unsettlement. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but we've already seen it.
Well, Cliff, I would not equate the gangs who attacked the Capitol with gangs in Haiti. I mean, I don't know all the details of the gang situation in Haiti, but my sense is that there's extreme poverty and economic distress, and that is playing a role in the gang activity there. I don't think that is necessarily the same thing for those who stormed the Capitol. I think that they are ideologically opposed to anything other than a white supremacist hegemony in the United States, and that was their main purpose in their violent attack. So I get your overall point, but I wouldn't equate those two.
It was it's a political gang, and what I'm saying is that in Haiti there was a political gang, and what I'm saying here in closing, and again, that's the Oath Keepers, these white supremacists, the Boogaloo Boys. These are political gangs. That's all I'm simply saying. There is a parallel in my opinion. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Cliff. Always appreciate your thoughtful comments and questions. So I thought it was interesting that the guest from Haitian Times, Mr. Pierre, talked about, he named Haiti as an apartheid state. That really perked my ears up, because I haven't heard anyone describe it in that way. But in terms of the corruption he described, the outsized influence of oligarchs and these wealthy families that trace their ancestry to, I don't know if he said European ancestry, but that's what I took from what he said. They trace their ancestry to outside of the country.
Right.
I think, you know, I've in my time I've spent in Puerto Rico, I've seen a similar dynamic where you have, you know, people who, in fact, when I was staying in Old San Juan, there is a Spanish club, like there's a social club for people who are of Spanish descent and who are proud of their Spanish descent. There's a social club. It's a big club. I think I don't know if it says Spanish club on the outside or something, but I noticed that right away. I don't know. You know, I just know that those who were beneficiaries of the previous colonial status quo and made money from that, they continue to have a lot of outsized power and influence, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, it's actually interesting. While we were talking about this, I was thinking about Puerto Rico, right? And then after the major hurricanes that swept through, although they are a protectorate of the United States, Commonwealth of the United States, they were not granted financial protection from the U.S. And I wonder to what extent the destabilization of Haiti creates an opportunity for Americans and Europeans to be able to buy prime real estate at dirt cheap prices and be able to do what they want to do. In much the same way that when Puerto Rico got wiped out, there was deep financial trouble there, that, you know, the infrastructure that they needed, they got loans not grants from the United States, that continue to put them in levels of debt. People had to sell property. Then the American landowners are going over there buying great beachfront property right there. Haiti shares an island with the Dominican Republic, which is a great vacation spot for a lot of people. Go over there, although they treat the Haitians very badly. And so I just think that this is more of a setup of land grab, and there's opportunity here for the oligarchs, the multimillionaires, the billionaire class, to be able to get what they want out of these countries, leave these deeply poor communities, but able to get some great beachfront property at dirt cheap prices during a course of destabilization where they come in with economic power and bring economic stability to the community, even though they are helping to dispossess people from their properties.
Well, interestingly, one as you're saying that, I did when all of this jumped off when the story first broke about the Haitian president being assassinated. I did a bunch of reading, and one of the points that I meant to ask our guest about, but I didn't get a chance to, was one of the things that I read was that the International Monetary Fund, which of course grants loans to all of these countries, but puts very strict rules in place about how they are supposed to run their economies if they agree to accept the money from the International Monetary Fund. They had imposed a pretty severe the IMF was involved in basically Haiti doubling its fuel prices. I don't know if it was a year ago or 2 years ago. And this president, the article was really about the enemies of President Moise, and who could possibly have an interest in getting rid of him. And one of the things they talked about was that he was disliked by a lot of the public because he had imposed a very severe increase in fuel prices, but it was at the behest of the International Monetary Fund. Oh. So that kind of involvement also, in Puerto Rico, we have the situation where all these hedge fund managers in the U.S. who backed loans to Puerto Rico and were allowed to do this because of the U.S. government, with permission of the U.S. government, like they have outsized influence in Puerto Rico and how it chooses to run itself. They put tons of constraints on the economy of Puerto Rico that is totally out of the control of the governor of Puerto Rico. So when you have, again, these moneyed interests playing an outsized role, it never leads to something that is beneficial to the people. It never leads to a positive democratic outcome, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Wait, we just want to let the listeners know the phone lines are open, 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. It's the one black nation in this hemisphere, right? And it's struggling so deeply. And I did appreciate Mr. Pierre pointing out, and which question you really asked too, is what do the Haitian people want? And what is it they need from the Haitian Americans? What do they need from their black siblings in this country and the United States in general in terms of support? I found it intriguing that he was saying only the prime minister was asking for support from America. Most of the other folk don't want America coming over there. I guess they don't want to be colonized once again.
Well, the U.S. Marines have a terrible history in Haiti, occupying Haiti for a long period. I mean, Haiti has been treated so terribly. I should, obviously they were colonized by the French and enslaved by the French, right? They overthrew the French. But their punishment for having a successful revolution was that they had to pay reparations to France, war reparations to France, or else France would block them from any trade with the global superpowers at the time. And that was a terrible, terrible price to pay for a new nation freely, having freed itself from the yoke of colonial oppression, not even getting its kind of legs under itself, And I feel like that set Haiti on a particular trajectory for the struggles that it has faced. So I think, I just think, and then, the U.S. invaded, and at the turn of the 20th century, I'm trying to think what year. I'm going to look it up on the break so that I can give the proper history. I used to know all of this like the back of my hand because I studied this for a while. But the U.S. Marines occupied Haiti for about 20 years. Not to mention other military incursions over the years after that. So I can understand why Haitians don't trust the United States. That's for sure.
Gotcha. Well, look, we are up on our next break here, and we want to remind folk again that the phone lines are open, 215-634-8065. Time has been flying tonight because of our guests. We've had very dynamic guests on. So we're going to go take a commercial break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Solutions on WURD.
Berger Montague is a Philadelphia-based plaintiffs' class action law firm committed to helping Philadelphia's black community. Berger Montague maintains a strong commitment to fostering diversity and equity throughout the legal community and in society in general. In 2020, Berger Montague filed a pro bono case against the IRS when they refused to send COVID-19 stimulus checks to federal benefits recipients with dependent children. Thanks to Berger Montague, people across the United States were able to obtain dependent benefit checks that they desperately needed. Berger Montague supports WURD Radio and Philadelphia's black community. For more information about Berger Montague Law Firm, please call 215-875-3033 or email at info@bm.net.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
You're listening to Solutions exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back to Solutions on WURD. This is Dwayne Royster along with Amani Braxton.
Hello.
All right, let's go. The phone lines are starting to light up. 215-634-8065. Let's go to Helen in North Philly. Helen, welcome to Solutions on WURD.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I remember when the earthquake came. When the earthquake came several years ago? And
yes.
Ed Wendell went over there and got some children. I've never known what happened to those girls, okay? And then the Clintons went there also and did some stuff. I can't remember all of the things that they did. But see, like you're saying, the United States want to come in there and gentrify Haiti. That's what I believe. Just like they want to gentrify Puerto Rico. So I don't know what to say. My great-great-grandmother was Haitian. My grandfather's grandmother was Haitian. So I feel very deeply about this situation. Nothing I can do. I don't have any money. So I'm upset.
But you have a strong personal connection.
Yes.
Yes. Well, that that earthquake was in 2010, I believe, and it was a catastrophic earthquake. Yes. And there's a lot of criticism. I know that the Bill Clinton played a big role in trying to organize, quote unquote, organize the international aid response on the ground there. But it really, there's a great documentary about it. I'm trying to look up the title right now that really gets to what was happening behind the scenes. There was a lot of you know, a lot of the international aid that comes from Europe and the U.S. and stuff, there's a lot of people pouring in money, but not actually communicating and working with the people on the ground to see how to best use those resources. And a lot of Europe, you know, Europe and the U.S. and Western, you know, powers dictating, here's what we think the money should be used for. And it's just a classic example of not giving people the right to self-determination. Yes, it's great if you want to help our country rebuild, but why don't you let us determine how to use the money so that we can make the best choices for ourselves. So a lot of real big mismanagement of the aid, a lot of really bad decision making, a lot of, you know, middlemen coming in to quote unquote help with the process, but making tons and tons of money themselves off of that aid that was supposed to be going there, and not a lot to show for it in terms of real rebuilding of infrastructure all these years later. So I'm glad you raised that.
Yeah. But what about those girls that Edwin Dell took? Where are they? He took them up in Roxborough somewhere.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but that's a really important question that should be answered. I don't know.
No idea. No idea.
I will say the I just want to name the documentary that really details the aftermath of the earthquake and the rebuilding efforts, and all of the kind of corruption and mismanagement that was happening on the part of Clinton and others, is called Fatal Assistance. Fatal Assistance. And it's a really, really great documentary. And the filmmaker is Raoul Peck, who is Haitian-born and also is the filmmaker behind many interesting stories, including a documentary about Patrice Lumumba, as well as some others. But most notably, I think recently people might recognize his name because he is the one that directed I Am Not Your Negro, which was a beautiful, powerful film about James Baldwin. And just recently he has put out, I believe, a series called Exterminate All the Brutes, which is a mini series that really looks at colonialism and imperialism across the world and the history of it. That is on my list to watch. It's not light watching, I hear, but it's supposed to be also quite good. It's called Exterminate All the Brutes.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah,
I just want to say before we go to the next caller, I did look up the information. So that the U.S. occupied Haiti from 1915 to 1934. The Marines were ordered in by none other than Woodrow Wilson.
Wow. All right, let's go to Chanel in Frankfurt. Chanel, welcome to Solutions on WURD.
Hi, guys. I just want to start off by saying I found this station by accident one morning going to work, and I love what you guys are doing. First and foremost, you educate me on a lot of topics that I had no idea about our people. And your show allows me to express to my daughter a lot of things with our black culture. So thank you. I love you. I mean, that goes from the beginning with the WURD, with Solomon Jones. I can't remember the lady on Sundays. I love her to death, the older lady. I just was basically calling just to say thank you for what you guys are doing, and I love you. You have no idea how inspiring it is to listen to your show every day. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. Very, very kind of you to share that. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's go to Maurice in North Philly. Maurice, welcome to Solutions on WURD.
Okay, thank you. And how's everyone?
Doing well. How are you?
I think you made some key points throughout the show and in your opening statement when you spoke about the Marshall Plan and other things. But the problem is with Black America, we're not in a position to help no one, especially economically. So we look at the lateral of Black America, Haiti, and South Africa. We're all politically strong but economically weak. We have yet to identify a comprehensive plan to free ourselves. economically. And because we have done that, we are stuck in a rut. So we can't support anyone. We don't have nothing to give ourselves. We fighting over here in America for our lives without an economic plan. Because the black leadership, or the lack of, have not created something separate from the political government. As long as we keep waiting for the government to save us, we're going to continue to drown. We must be able to create our own comprehensive economic plan to extend the olive oil branch to Haiti and the Caribbean and to South Africa. South Africa, the same boat, political strong, economic weak. Thank you.
So I hear that, and actually I disagree with you to some extent. I think African Americans actually have, I think our GDP is like $3.9 trillion a year or something like that. It's some ridiculously high number in terms of the buying power for African Americans. I think the challenge is for us how and where we are investing our resources. And I think that that's part of the critical issue that we really have to take a look at when it comes to black wealth in America. The other thing I think we have to also remember, too, is that even some of our poorest in this country are richer than many of folk that are in other countries, right? So the income that some of our poorest folk, even the minimum wage here in other countries, is actually substantially higher. It's in terms of relation of what it buys and different things, it doesn't feel the same. But we actually have more economic power here than we do than some of the countries that we care deeply about. So I just think we take a look at our economic power in the context of America, and we don't take a look at our economic economic power in the construct of the world. And when we look at it in the construct of the world, we actually have a lot of economic power. But if we're insistent on investing here in the United States, we will not feel like we have the power we would if we went to other countries.
Can I ask you a question?
Can I just respond as well? I just want to quickly say I also believe that we, I think, are doomed to failure if we think that we have to do it by ourselves. I think we have to join with other oppressed peoples to gain collective power, because we, I hear this often from folks that, well, we have to get our own selves together before we can help anybody else. It's not about even like helping anybody else. It's just about building solidarity across difference, across groups, so that we can work together to undermine our common oppressor. Divide and conquer has been the name of the game that got us in this situation in the first place.
That's right.
So how do we undermine that? By actually building bridges across difference so that we can actually deal with the common oppressor from a stronger place.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's going to be interesting in all of this, and you kind of hit the fact that we have to be in relationships. So I was talking about the demographics of the U.S. the other day, and we talked about white minority rule, which is really what the Republicans are working on in this country right now, kind of looping us back to the very beginning of the show. They're kind of going back to white minority rule, and it's because in 2040, they actually will become a minority group in the country. Right now, they're about 51% of the U.S. population. Hispanic community or Latinx community is about 18%. The African American community is about 16%. Then there's the Asian Pacific Islander community, indigenous community, biracial community here in the United States. Here's the thing. If black and brown folk and indigenous folk and Asian Pacific Islanders and biracial folk and poor white folk don't figure out, and middle-class white folk don't figure out how we're going to work together in coalition, we will continually have white minority rule in this country, because no one group is big enough to be able to pull out and say we're going to, be in charge. And so we're actually going to have a group of racial groups, none of which constitute the majority, that are going to be deeply vying for power. And the only way we're going to be able to win is to be in coalition. So with one another. So I do think that you're right. We don't have to do this by ourselves. We have to have partners along the way. And in this country, we could identify certainly with the Latinx community, the indigenous community, Asian Pacific Islander, biracial folk, and other communities that feel oppressed, that we should be in coalition with one another to be able to develop a plan, an agenda, a political plan, economic plan, education plan, healthcare plan, and execute that for the whole of the nation so that we can all thrive and not just a handful of folk be able to do so.
You're speaking my language.
There we go. All right. Well, I guess that's really just about our time for this week.
Yes, it is.
And I appreciate you, Miss Braxton, for everything you do. This was a great guest tonight. It was a really interesting show. I actually learned a lot, so I appreciate it. And very excited about the program from the Futures program for our young folk. I really want to keep an eye on that in the days and weeks to come.
Healing Futures, Healing Futures.
Healing Futures, really want to keep an eye on that. And also Mr. Pierre from the Haitian Times, really enlightening us from a Haitian perspective on what's happening in Haiti, right? Not the American perspective, not the American media perspective, but the Haitian perspective. So deeply appreciate it. Thank you, Troy, for everything that you do, for keeping us on the air and making sure our show runs smoothly each and every week, and for scaring everybody at the beginning of the show faithfully every week. I'm sure if somebody just turned that on that's listening, it's like, maybe not. Thank you to everybody that listened to us today through the air, through the app, through the internet, whether you watch this on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. You might have checked us out on Alexa. Hey, Alexa, turn on WURD Radio so people are able to hear the show. Stay tuned now for the Envy McKee Show. And family, do us and everybody that you love and care about a favor. Go out. Change the damn world. Because if you don't, nobody else will. Peace.
Now I'm motivated